It has been over a month since China relaxed its COVID-19 measures. You probably haven't seen much news coverage about the US and European players poised to gain from the transition. What are the opportunities they're talking about? And how is this transition going to affect you? I'm Sina. Welcome to Factstyle. Today we're also joined by Mr. Chris Pereira, President and CEO of the North American Ecosystem Institute. He has over 15 years of experience in China with expertise in market entry advisory. Welcome to Factstyle, Chris.
No, thank you so much for having me today. It's good to talk with you.
So first off, what does 2023 look like for the global economy? Well, it is perilously close to falling into a recession this year. That's not from me, that's from the World Bank, according to its latest report. We were all endured so much in the past 3 years and counting. And one important lesson that has come from global pandemic is that being diversified across geographies and sectors can help investors reduce risk, especially when they need to compensate for the totality of one single region. So Chris, speaking of global diversification, has the pandemic reinforced its importance? What is your personal experience with that?
Yeah, I think the pandemic and the post-pandemic environment is really pushing a lot of companies and a lot of businesses to think about overseas markets and also building more bridges again, because of course with COVID, travel was restricted, business was restricted, a lot of projects and companies' plans were put on hold. So I think in 2023, I'm really expecting to see a rebound, and there's a lot of positive energy in China right now to do more business overseas. That's what I'm seeing on the ground. Yeah.
At a time of global energy crisis, slowing growth, and high inflation, China's economy continues to grow. Newly released official data show that China's growth last year beat market expectations, as GDP for the full year expanded by 3% from a year earlier. Looking ahead to 2023, the World Bank expects the economy to grow by 4.3%. So going forward, what kind of role, Chris, you think would China's economic rebound play in the global recovery?
Well, I think the role that China is going to play is going to be very important. The last 2 or 3 years with COVID, we've missed a lot of the energy that China was bringing to the market pre-COVID. So in 2023, I think the world really needs China to re-engage with global business.
Certainly. According to the official data, by the end of December, total outstanding yuan deposits stood at 258.5 trillion, including money that households deposited in their bank accounts. It's an increase of over 11% year-on-year. With pent-up savings and pent-up demand, Chinese tourists are hitting the road. Meanwhile, anticipating the return of Chinese travelers, industry professionals, students, and investors, a variety of sectors could become immediate beneficiaries.
In terms of the value of Chinese being outbound visitors into the rest of the world, you know, they were, if you like, the most valuable in many senses, but also in economic senses, visitors to the rest of the world. And when it comes to visitors from outside China coming into China to visit China, and you will see that rebounding very, very strongly.
It is a tremendous opportunity for students in China to reach out to the world and experience many different opportunities and locations. It is also an opportunity for travelers from overseas to come to China. And with the resumption of travel, we hope to be able to welcome students and people from around the world back into China. We are very hopeful for hopefully many double-digit growth this year.
So Chris, I'm wondering, what should the corporations and the business professionals expect to see when Chinese consumers resume spending and traveling?
Yeah, great question. And I think the first key word I mentioned already is recovery. So I don't expect to see a huge expansion in spending from consumers in China in 2023. But compared to the last few years, I think we're able to be more optimistic that we're going to see some increase in spending.
Indeed. Although people in China are eager to travel while welcoming global visitors with open arms, some in the West have been stoking irrational fear as if its common sense. They say China always poses a danger, and they try to make China a threat by treating it as such. Mainstream media and political statements have reached a frenzied level to create a vibe. Chris, I know you have a lot of experience working with Chinese companies and the people here. And as a Canadian, as a native speaker of English, you are also the target demographic of mainstream Western media. I know you recently made in-depth analysis on other platforms, and that's quite amazing. So when you see stories with sexy and risque headlines like Chinese coffee machines are stealing your personal information to tell the government how you take your morning brew, or smart vacuum cleaners are driving through people's houses taking pictures of kids' homework, what is your take on this?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the headlines are definitely interesting. The first thing I always like to say is we want to look at the data. So if you look at 2022 numbers, trade between the United States and China actually increased despite COVID, despite some tension between the two countries. So business is going on. It's still growing, and I think that's a very good sign. Now, to go back to your question about how media portrays Chinese companies, I think Chinese companies are being treated unfairly in the North American market. When you look at, as you mentioned, smart coffee machines are watching what you drink in your kitchen. Yes, personal data protection is important, but it's important no matter where you're from. So if a coffee machine is made in China, or if it's made in Switzerland or Canada, my view is we should be treating all companies the same.
For sure. And Chris, how should people perceive these concerning headlines before they, planning their next trip to China?
Absolutely. I think some of the negative headlines can have a negative impact on the sentiment about China. But there's two things to remember about this. In North America, when dealing with media, I always tell my clients it's not if you have a negative headline or a positive headline, it's how you react to the headline. So I think when we have this unfair treatment, it's important to have a smart, a rational, and a very positive and optimistic response to those articles. So it's not the end of the world when you have a headline like that, and so that's the first thing. And the other thing is I'm pushing very hard to promote the idea that all companies should be held to the same standard, high standard.
Yes. So, talking about being rational, how should policymakers interpret the profound implication of protectionism?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a double-edged sword. The most important thing protectionism does is it weakens the local businesses, because I think all companies and all businesses become stronger through competition. So if you protect them, it's like if you do not go to the gym, you're not going to have the muscles, right? And in some ways, you're letting your companies, okay, you don't need to go to the gym, we'll protect you.
Certainly. Thinking of all those global issues such as climate, the COVID-19 pandemic, global economic recovery, food security, energy problem, terrorism, etc. None of these problems can be solved by one single country. In fact, they all require cooperation, understanding, and coordination that transcend national interests. But of course, this won't make juicy news stories at all. But at the end of the day, once we solve these problems, we, our children, and the future generations are the beneficiaries. Just like what Chris said in his article, nothing can be gained from selling sexy and risque headlines. And let's do something with real meaning today that our children will thank us for it. So Chris, as an ending remark, do you have any advice to share with those looking for new opportunities in China, just like you many, many years ago?
This is a great year to come because with COVID ending, many Western companies, many Western experts have returned home temporarily to get through COVID. So in 2023, China is a very interesting place. There's a lot of opportunity here. I'm in Shenzhen right now for that reason. There's a lot of activity here in Shenzhen, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunities here. So if you're a bold and long-term focused entrepreneur from the United States or overseas, I think China is a great market to look at in 2023.
Thank you, Chris, for being on the show.
I really appreciate the time to chat and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
So, how apprehensive should you be regarding what some people have claimed about China? Well, there's an old saying in Chinese I'd like to share with you. 落地为兄弟,何必骨肉亲? By being born into this world, everybody becomes each other's brother, and that doesn't require you to be related by blood. That will be a wrap up for today. Thanks for watching. If you like our show, please remember to click like and subscribe. I'm Saina. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.